Welcome to DABCC Radio,
where smart people listen.
Virtualization and Cloud Talk,
Featuring cutting-edge solutions from the hottest companies around the globe.
broadcasting from the DABCC offices in sunny Sarasota, Florida.
Surrounded by computers, books, and Legos.
A Microsoft MVP, Citrix Charter CTP, VMware vExpert.
And your host, Douglas Brown.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of DABCC Radio. We have a phenomenal show. We're going to talk about one of my favorite, most interesting subjects there is out there today, and that is sort of machine learning and big data. Now, you need the big data, and then you can do machine learning. And there's a new solution just released today. Now, you're listening to the podcast whenever, and I'm going to post it tomorrow, which means nothing to you at the moment. But just right today, as I'm talking, telling you this, as I'm speaking into my microphone, a new solution was released from a great company called SIOS. And their solution is called SIOS IQ. And we have their chief operating officer, just a brilliant man, a techie within his own right, and then some, a gentleman named Jerry Melnick. And he is going to tell us all about SIOS IQ and what they're doing, what it means for you, how it works, what it takes to get it installed. You know the drill. So with no further ado, let's dive into this and my interview with Jerry Melnick from SIOS. Okay, Jerry, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. I look forward to this conversation. You guys are, I get to learn all about this machine learning. It's one of well, I won't even go ahead. I won't get ahead of myself. Let's start diving into this. So before we do get into the technology and learn about what the heck machine learning is and all that, I have my first question. That is, who are you? So can you tell us who you are and what do you do over at SIOS?
Yes, so I actually arrived at SIOS about 2 years ago. Prior to that, I was a CTO at Marathon Technologies. We were doing fault-tolerant system development. I've been in the infrastructure, high availability, database systems field for over 20 years, building either sort of clustering or application systems that use databases. And actually did a little bit of time in the research analytics in the biospace when back in the day when they called it data warehousing as opposed to big data.
Yeah.
So I came to SIOS with really both sort of to marry an interest between the high availability space and what we saw evolving around intelligence, applying big data, data mining to a variety of different domains and using that and marrying it with infrastructure problems we're seeing that are rising around sort of virtualization.
Interesting. I'm very interested. I tell you, if I'm an engineer by training. I like to say a marketing guy by evolution, I guess. And but one of and I come from the Citrix world and really the application and desktop world. But the two things that really interest me most today are this big data thing, right? Machine learning and big data, and then Internet of Things, which is just really cool. But big data is just phenomenal. What's going on in that space and what we can do with it, right? And then nowadays we have the power to pull off a lot of these computation or what have you, right? It's really in a phenomenal area.
And that's actually the observation you made is that we have the computational power. When I think back in the 90s when I was working in the research analytics space, the kinds of data sets they may have been complicated, but they're certainly really that big. Now with the internet, the amount of data that's around and accessible, and I think accessible is the key, has made it so that we can really do some powerful things. The analytics side of the puzzle has really evolved enormously, and a lot of new technologies and analytical approaches, which have been around for 10 or 15 years, are being applied to really solve some tough problems. And the opportunity here that we saw at SIOS was to take some of that stuff we're doing in various other domains and then apply it to the area of IT operations, which is just emerging right now. And we felt this was an important place to apply that type of technology.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, you have my attention, that's for sure. So, you guys today, I believe today, you just announced something. So let's talk about that. But before we get into what you announced today, can you tell us who is SIOS? Why is this company founded? What is the goals behind it? What are you guys trying to do over there?
Yes, SIOS, very interesting company, different in many ways, with a lot of opportunity in front of it. We've actually been around for 15 years. Back in the late 90s, early 2000, the company was formed as a spin-out from NCR. There was some early technology around Linux, which Linux was quite early back then, for high availability clustering. We were the first to do high availability clustering. We kind of cut our teeth on that, so to speak, and then built out some Windows clustering tools as well. So built up a very solid early lead on how you do high availability for database transactional applications back in early 2000 beyond. But when it was spun out, it was venture-backed, and it was called a company that maybe some people might recognize out there, SIOS Technology.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right. And then SIOS in about 2006 was acquired by SIOS Technology of Japan, which is a publicly held and traded company on the Tokyo Stock Exchange. So the U.S. company is actually a subsidiary, and the Japanese company, our parent, and I run the operations, sales, marketing, and R&D in the U.S. So we've been building, high availability systems. We have customers today who take their systems, and we have what we call a SANless cluster, and we can do some very unusual and important things by allowing you to build clusters, not just in physical environments, but across, virtual environments and into the cloud. And we have a large number of customers that are moving clusters, forklift a cluster up into the cloud, where they don't have a SAN. We provide this special sauce to allow them to operate without that SAN and in a variety of configurations, just as they do with a physical shared storage. Yeah. So that's been, sort of our bread and butter, our legacy, certainly, and it's an important part of our business today. We have relationships with Microsoft and Azure, Amazon, VMware, all of the major ones. And our customers are doing things you might never imagine with their mission-critical systems these days. So the adoption of the cloud, these guys are laggards somewhat in the industry in terms of moving off of physical servers and into virtualization and cloud. But in the last year or two, it's a rush. Very interesting.
Very interesting. Well, you can't say there's something very interesting without giving us an example, right? I mean, come on. So give us an example of that. We want to talk about the new stuff, but hey, come on, give us an example of that.
Well, I think what's important to understand is sort of our DNA, so you see where we're coming from and how we're going about it nonetheless. So our existing product line, as I mentioned, enables customers to take their SQL Server applications that they're running for finance or operations, and then they currently have them running on physical servers. Well, they want to decide to build a DR site. Or have a DR capability, so if one site goes down, they can fail someplace else. Using our SANless software cluster, they can actually locate a failover node of that cluster in Azure, for instance.
Oh, very cool.
And they don't have to build another data center. It's just software configuration. We had another customer who came in, and they said, we have physical servers, and we want to go worldwide with our operations. They were a car rental agency out of Japan, for instance, and with very short amount of time, they were able to take all their clusters, move them into Amazon, and now they had a global IT organization. So the kinds of flexibility and things people are doing today, and this is really built in last year, are truly remarkable. We see SAP systems moving into Azure, for instance. We're certified and the only ones there. But I'm going to now mention the problem, and we'll kind of tell you a little bit more of the question you asked earlier, which was about what's our new product. Our new product we call SIOS IQ, which really is looking to address a problem that we saw emerge as customers move these critical applications into much more complex environments like virtualization and cloud, and away from the much simpler, constrained, deterministic environments of physical server environments that they've lived in. They used to be able to count on certain resources being there. They used to be able to count on, when something failed over or failed, they could just restart it someplace else. There was enough CPU, memory, etc. to run it. Their users would be happy. Everything kept running. In the virtualization environment, not so clear exactly what's going on. There's a lot, you're sharing resources, it's just not clear. And so the problem they ran into was, how do you cut through that complexity, make sure that you can deliver the SLAs that you need for these mission critical applications, and still be able to leverage the dynamic flexibility and cost savings of virtualization and cloud that they really wanted to. So we saw that opportunity, and we saw the need to bring significantly greater intelligence into these environments in order to help those customers. Besides the problem of how do I see and understand these complex environments so that I can optimize, repair, grow, expand, etc., the problem that the IT people are faced with today is they have tools, they have techniques, but they're very complex. They require multiple domain experts. So if a problem comes in and somebody calls the front desk and says, hey, my application's running too slow, it starts with a triage. Is it the database? The DBA gets involved. The database administrator calls the SAN guy. The SAN guy says everything's running fine. They call the network guy. This network looks great. So where's the problem? One of our customers told us that 80% of the calls to the front desk go to the infrastructure group to try to figure out what's wrong, and then 50% of those ended up punted back up to the application. So we saw a need to kind of see through that, collapse the silos of expertise and data, and help triage and identify really where are the problems and what do I need to do next. So complexity was something we really wanted to get our hands around and help in a way that hasn't happened before. And in order to do that, we realized that, if you looked at things like clustering and those kinds of technologies, those are all very procedural. They're kind of, if this happens, do this, if this happens. We really needed to utilize much more advanced thinking and intelligence, and that's where machine learning comes in. So you acquire data across all these stacks, and then you put them together and you analyze them with machine learning, and then you deliver that in a very, very simple manner using mobile and touch-enabled interface. And now you've got a full platform that really challenges the problem of complexity at its root and delivers an unprecedented, simple user interface that literally allows you to click or touch your way into finding out what's going on, what's wrong, and how to fix it. And so we went after that complexity problem in a number of different ways.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So, gosh, I have so many questions for you. But you just mentioned, to click and touch. Can you give us? This isn't an audio podcast, obviously, but can you sort of draw the pictures of, verbal picture of what you mean by that click and touch? Maybe verbally walk us through the experience of that.
Yeah, absolutely. If you think about it, the biggest problem you have is, how do you present meaningful information to the end user that is dense enough that they can quickly find just the information that they need? What typically happens in today's IT operations tools is that you have a flurry of alerts and alert storms and lots of false positives, and then there's some real information in all that noise, and sifting through that's a problem. So the challenge we had to do at the very highest level was, how do we present just the information that's most important and find all the subtle things? So we spent a lot of time thinking about that presentation. Matter of fact, we have a patent on it. We call it our SIOS PERC dashboard, PERC. It stands for performance, efficiency, reliability, and capacity. And we think of everything around your infrastructure as those four quality of service dimensions. Is it performing well? Is it running efficiently? Am I running without spending too much money? Is it reliable? If a failure occurs, will I be able to recover and deliver the services? And then what kinds of capacity do I need? Am I running out of it? Is storage going away? Is memory going away? What's going to happen if I add a new application? Those are the 4 dimensions. And we realized if we built a very simple dashboard just around performance, efficiency, reliability, and capacity, and presented those as sort of your indicator lights, kind of like what on a car you have your check engine or your check oil light. If those 4 lights were green, then your infrastructure we've analyzed and it's running properly, and your applications are happy and your users are happy. But at the same time, we can find out by studying that infrastructure with our machine learning technology when deviations are occurring along any of those 4 dimensions, performance, efficiency, reliability, or capacity, and call those out. And in calling those out, that becomes something that it's an anomaly, as known in machine learning terms, and something you can look at. And with a single click on that indicator light, you can find out what the anomaly is, which objects in the system, virtual machines, storage, etc., are experiencing that anomaly, and what the impact is, and then how to fix it. So in that way, we're actually proactively showing you problems that are emerging, that are out of the ordinary, so that you get a very deep insight with basically hands-free operations other than the click that you needed to go get the information.
Very interesting. Now, with all this data collecting, are you collecting this from the particular customer, or is it an aggregate across all your customers? How does that work? The more data, the better, right?
Yeah, the more data, the better. Now, this is, just to be clear, this is an on-premise solution. In other words, you download our software. We took simplicity very, very, very importantly as part of the design in every aspect. And we make it a 5-minute download, install, no threshold setting, no configuration. You tell us where you want to collect information, so just tell us what your infrastructure access points are. We incorporate that, we start learning. So that on-premise, our customers told us that that on-premise solution was important because they didn't want to give up important IT information outside of the room.
Sure.
So you point it at that information, and we're going to collect information from your hypervisor, from your hosts, and then it's an analytics platform in the very truest sense, in that we're prepared to collect information from many different sources, log data, other tools, etc. We're aggregating that information. It's built scalable, flexible, and dynamic so that we can target different problem domains across PERC as we grow. But in the initial instantiation, the product we're announcing today of SIOS IQ, we're really focusing on performance and efficiency, and we'll grow out to reliability and capacity over time. So that data gets aggregated, and then once it's aggregated, we have the opportunity to ask a lot of questions. And the kinds of data, just to get specific, are things like real-time I/O flows between virtual machines and the various objects in the system, resource utilization over time, whether it's memory or network, etc., or CPU. And we also record all the interrelationships between the very objects. We have a technology we call vGraph, and vGraph basically goes out and creates a graph of all the objects, your virtual machines, networks, and storage in the infrastructure, identifies their relationships, and the machine learning then starts to study the patterns between the relationships of those objects. So you could imagine almost kind of like a molecule of connected little atoms. We're going to watch the vibrations of that molecule over time, and watch data flows between them and whatnot, and the resources they use, and the dimensions of their characteristics. And over time, we're going to learn what a normal operating environment looks like. If we see a set of related objects all of a sudden deviate, that is something that we call out. That's truly an anomaly. And so it's a very abstract way of looking at it, but it allows us to get very subtle indications of patterns that are important to the operations of your environment that many other technologies won't find. And it also allows us to identify who's doing what to whom and how to fix that. Because when we see that anomaly, we also have data to be able to correlate that anomaly to an event that occurred and say, that anomaly really correlated to this event. And obviously, with the machine learning technology, we get smarter over time. In other words, we learn more patterns and we incorporate that into our knowledge.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I'm jumping all over the place here, just basically based off your answers. But I want to take a step back, and you had mentioned some of the challenges. Are there any other challenges that the SIOS IQ addresses that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, in terms of specific challenges, now that we have the data in our hands, we talked a bit about the areas of performance, efficiency, reliability, capacity. I thought I would give you some examples of the kinds of things we've done. So in the performance area, for instance, we have a really nice solution set that say we notice that certain virtual machines are contending for storage and storage is very slow. We can do an analysis across the infrastructure and across the virtual machines to understand which of those virtual machines could best take advantage of what's known as host-based caching, that is using high-speed SSD or PCI flash that's located local to the storage to cache blocks off a shared storage device and make it much, much faster and provide much higher performance operations for a specific application load. It turns out that it's really hard, for instance, to understand in a very large environment which of the applications, which of their disks are making use of, could make use of that type of technology to improve performance, because you have to take in a lot of factors. You can't really see, for instance, which of the virtual machines that are doing it, or whether there are other bottlenecks that are impeding their performance. But what we can do by doing this broad analytics across the infrastructure is identify very quickly and very accurately a list of virtual machines, give them to you in a single touch as a sorted list of those virtual machines that would benefit the most, tell you, which of the disks would benefit, tell you what if you cached it, what the cache size should be, what the block size should be, and then simulate what the performance improvement for storage would be for that virtual machine. So we've done all of those. We've aggregated, analyzed, we've predicted, recommended, and simulated the results. So now you can go ahead, buy your server-side storage, configure those to be cached locally, and significantly improve the performance of your virtual machines and applications.
Very cool, very cool. So you mentioned machine learning a lot, and for those who might not be 100% up on what machine learning is, can you talk a bit about what machine learning is, how it works, how you guys have implemented this ideal within SIOS IQ, and how that in return makes SIOS IQ very powerful?
Yeah, machine learning is a cornerstone of what we're using in order to understand and learn over time normal behavior. And it brings a couple of major advantages. Obviously, accuracy is what's most important, but it's also what I mentioned earlier with hands-free operation. If we can learn about your environment, then you don't need to tell us about it, and we don't have to count on you really understanding what you're telling us. So, for instance, a lot of people have used machine learning to determine what the optimal threshold is, rather than having somebody set the maximum threshold size of memory that they want to achieve and then hoping they don't go over it. We determine by learning the environment what the optimal threshold size should be, and let you know when you've gone over it. So that eliminates a lot of complexity in you having to manage that. And you can imagine how complicated it gets in lots of different environments. Machine learning itself is a technology, an analytical technology that watches and learns from the environment and then statistically groups behaviors over time and identifies both trends and outliers that go beyond what is current and observed in the system. There's a number of different types of machine learning technologies. We're employing primarily what would be called unsupervised learning. That is, there's no learning set that's required initially, although we could prime that with some learning from other systems, and we will over time. But that unsupervised learning basically learns over time the normal behavior and patterns in your system, and then identifies the outliers. There's a notion of semi-supervised learning where you can tell us, oh, this anomaly really is an anomaly. It's just happening because I know I just did something, and we'll incorporate that behavior in. So that's really the basis of machine learning, and its value is obviously intelligence and simplicity.
You got it. Now, is there a time period where a user, a customer, would see optimum benefits? I mean, obviously, it just gets smarter and smarter and smarter. But what's that sort of, that where they start really getting to okay, this thing's working?
Well, again, it depends upon which problem you're looking at. Like some of the problems that we're seeing, for instance, even just the one I mentioned about host-based caching, within an hour or so, we're coming up with some pretty accurate predictions. Others will take 24 hours, and some will take a week or a month. And you can imagine, if you have Christmas cycles of shopping, sure, that observing all that, we get smarter over time. You can incorporate, as I said earlier, a standard learning set, which really is basically a set of thresholds and standards that you would expect. And then what you do over time is you can replace those manually imparted learning with observed learning and get smarter and smarter, and that way you kind of get that bootstrap period going more quickly.
Perfect. And you had mentioned a little bit about the implement, the product and how it's on-prem solution. But can you sort of walk us through what does it take to implement? So I go ahead and download this. I get a Windows server, Linux box, virtual machine. Well, what do I do? How do I walk us through the process to get this thing up and running?
Very easy. You go to our site, you download an OVA. We're targeting VMware as our first virtualization platform. More to come. You download the OVA onto your VMware virtual infrastructure. We ask you a few questions about the data sources that you'll be using for your infrastructure. Where your hosts are and virtual center, and then we start acquiring data. Then within literally hours, you point your browser or your mobile device at the SIOS IQ infrastructure analyzer, and you're off and going. So it's just a virtual machine that we load.
Oh, that's simple. Love it. So there's no excuse for people not to try it out. Do you have a how does it? Do you have a free version, freemium model? Do you have a trial? How does that play out?
Yes, that's right. We have a free edition, which we allow you to use and keep forever. We'll continue to update that with new capabilities, and then we have a paid edition, which has more capabilities, more recommendations, deeper insights as well. And we'll rev both of those together, so we deliver value in both. And we're delivering it on a subscription model. Which basically charges per virtualized host per month, annualized. And, however many VMs, network storage, whatever you have, those are all covered by that per host license. So you're going to have one copy of our software and then a license for whatever hosts you want analyzed in their environments. So it's really simple.
Perfect. Can someone go from the free version to the full version without skipping a beat? It's just changing a license?
That's right.
Perfect.
Just change the license. And in fact, we understood that, the advantage of a SaaS model was the quick rev of software that people got. So we've made it very easy to rev software. We're going to be delivering out new capabilities on a 4 to 6 week sprint that we'll publish. And on the user interface, there's a little green button. It'll turn red when a new one comes around. You press that and we upload it, install it, and now you're up and running with the latest new capabilities.
So we complete over-the-air upgrades then.
That's right.
Oh,
That's
I love it. It's like the App Store, but I don't know, better.
It is. It was the App Store model again. Mobile touch. Nobody else is really doing the mobile touch UI, and the IT guys have been living with sort of 10-year-old, 20-year-old in some cases user interfaces and suffering. Yet they have consumer interfaces that are significantly more powerful. We really wanted to provide that kind of capability to them.
That's excellent. So, the negative of an audio podcast is you can't see it. So, guys, there's no excuse for you not to download this, at least the free version, and pop this in your VMware infrastructures and give this a try and see for yourself. I'm definitely going to do it. This is neat stuff, and it's announced today. So, this podcast is. Well, it takes a couple days for me to get it along, or a day to get it online. So it's already online. Go download it, and away you go. That brings me to my last couple questions. But before I get to the last couple questions, Jerry, is there anything we left out? I bet you can talk about this for weeks. So, but anything high level that you want to, or low level, anything at all that you want to talk about before we move into my last couple questions, which are competition and future?
Okay. Well, actually, the future was what I wanted to talk about. For sure.
We'll definitely get there. You can't get away. My format for the show is always the first question is who are you? You can't avoid that question. Then we get into talk about things, and then the last two is competition and future. So, although some people say like, oh, I can't talk about the future, but that's excellent. You want to talk about, but let's get to competition real quick then.
Okay.
There's other guys doing this. There's guys doing this SaaS model. There's, tons of the old stuff. Why should we care about what you're doing compared to, in comparison to everybody else out there?
Yeah, I think you said it. There are people doing the SaaS model. I said we really felt as though this needed to be on-prem, particularly today. There are people doing, grown up in legacy environments and trying to add machine learnings retrospectively, and they're working either from the APM, application performance monitoring, down into the infrastructure. Everybody's using a different perspective. Nobody has really taken a look at this with a fresh piece of paper and said, how do I build an analytics platform to capture data and really build something that has both extensibility, flexibility, and scalability. And then delivers it in a format. So putting that is really usable and consumable, that I don't have to go to school for 2 weeks. So it's all about that ease of use issue and the intelligence. And we've put all three pieces: data aggregation, analytics, and data delivery into a package that's just unprecedented in many ways. And we see that as a great differentiator and really an overlay to what others have done already.
Well, you mentioned something. You don't have to go to school to learn how to use this, and that's one of the problems, huge problems with solutions like performance monitor, root cause analysis, all these type of solutions. That you really have to be an analytics expert. You got to know what you're doing in order to get to it, and some of these guys aren't, right? Because So, can you talk a bit about that? How did you manage to simplify it, but yet still give the data that they need?
Yeah, I think that what we've really done is we've focused again on that platform in order to be positioned to be able to answer any questions. But then we've next focused on specific and the most important questions that need to be answered very easily. That focus has allowed us to, rather than an open-ended solution, it's very well designed to do what's most important most easily, and that's where we spent our time.
Perfect. Well, that's another one of the reasons why people need to try it out to see for themselves, right? And then the last. Well, I have one more question after that, but that's an easy one. So the last real question, I guess, is future. So where are you going with this thing? Tell us about the future.
Yeah, the future is boundless for products like this, obviously.
Yeah.
But we'll stay focused. We said that we're using PERC, performance, efficiency, reliability, capacity as guiding principles in terms of how we both develop new solutions and what problems we would solve. And we went to customers, being that reliability and availability is our DNA. We went to customers initially and said, well, we can really help you with reliability and availability in these environments. And they said, we're really concerned about reliability and availability. Thank you. But day to day we deal with performance issues, and if you can help us sort through that, we really appreciate it. So we started off with performance root cause analysis. We did some efficiency stuff to basically demonstrate that, hey, not only can we appeal to the IT guys, but their bosses and CIOs are going to be interested in how they can deliver the ROI on the applications and the platforms. So we see as well us moving up that stack. We're going to move into reliability solutions, we're going to move into capacity solutions, and we're going to be able to provide very, very valuable information for making decisions about the business of IT, particularly regarding ROIs on applications. Because we have such deep insight to the applications, we can help you figure out their cost to run in the environment, how to simplify the environment, or maybe cost if you ran it someplace else. And they're not just simple averages, they're real live observed requirements for that application and real live costs associated with that application were you to move it. So we have such valuable data in this data set. We certainly can make use of that for a lot of different use cases that span greatly over time. And we'll integrate a lot more data over time in order to answer those questions, because that will help provide sort of the underlying foundation for increasing that value.
That's great. That's great. And you guys are doing what you said, 4-week sprints? Is that right?
4 to 6 week sprints, you'll be seeing it. Yes, we're going to be at VMworld in August, and we'll have our next sprint out before then. So we're going to keep evolving. So if you have a subscription to the product, you're just getting more value all the time with no additional charge.
That's awesome. That is just awesome. And then my last question is, if somebody wants to learn more, what do they need to do?
They can go to www.sios.com. There's going to be plenty of material there. There's a download they can go straight to, free edition, as well as 30-day trial license for our standard editions.
Perfect. Jerry, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. I'll go ahead and give you the last word, and we'll call this a podcast. Sound good?
Absolutely. Thank you, Doug. Thank you very much for the time here. We're very excited, obviously, about what we're doing here. We see the opportunity. We understand its importance, and we just see this as the very beginning of a very rich and new space opening up in the area of IT operational analytics, and we're going to be a major player there in the approach that we've taken.
That's just so wonderful. I just love what's going on in this world today in machine learning and big data and analytics is one of my favorite subjects. So I can't wait I look forward to. I don't even need to wait. I'm already doing it. I look forward to watching you guys grow and seeing what's coming, and that's just wonderful. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us, and you have a great day.
You as well, Doug. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that concludes another successful episode of DABCC Radio. As always, we had a great episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Boy, Jerry's a really bright guy, and what they're doing over at SIOS is just thoroughly amazing. Just the power of big data, the power of what we can do with analytics. I mentioned because of, the ability to have the speeds that we have, and Jerry threw in, yes, but it's also the data that we have out there. And he's exactly correct. How do you argue with the guy that does it, right? But it's phenomenal, and you're seeing this, what SIOS is doing, others are doing it out there, and it's just changing the way of how we've done, performance analysis in the past. So this is the future of it. Guys, download this thing. It's free, or there's a free version, and there's no excuse why you can't just throw it in your environment and see what it finds, and if you like it, hey, get a PO and buy it. But, check this out. Again, head on over to www.sios.com, and it's that simple, sios.com, and what else do I say? Let them know you heard it on DABCC. You can always do that. If you enjoy the show, tweet about it. Just tweet at DABCC, or just share the link. I don't care. You don't even have to say DABCC. Just share the link. Share the guys out there that we're interviewing. But on that note, the most important people are you guys. Without you, well, there's no DABCC Radio. And I've been doing this for 9 years now, believe it or not, the podcast. It just means I'm old. That's it. I'm an old man now that gets to talk with these really smart guys. And what a joy it has been for 9 years and hopefully 9 more, because the industry's not slowing down. And although I slow down a bit, a lot slower than I was 9 years ago. Sometimes. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening to ABCC Radio. Please tell a friend. And on that note, have a great day, everyone. And again, thanks for listening to the ABCC Radio.
Say DABCC?
DABC.
Say it again, DABCC.
DABC.
Can you say it again? D-A-B-C-C.
D-A-B-B-C.
How about D-A-B-C-C?
D-A-B-B-C.
D-A-B-C-C.
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 D-A-B-C-C.